Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. It's Queen here. If you're new here, thank you so much for dropping by. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for always coming back. So today I'm going to be showing you how I achieved this beautiful triangle knotless braids you saw in the beginning of this video. So the first thing you want to do is to make sure you create a very crisp and clear part from the beginning of the hair, from the nape of her head. Just since it's going to be large sizes, from the top of her ear downwards, you're just going to have 2 lines there, and then the first one should have 3 braids and the second one should have about that depends on how you follow the cutting, so it should be like the same number of braids from the bottom. So if you watch closely, you see what I'm talking about. So I just divide this into 2 equal parts, and then following that, one good thing about triangle braids is it's quite easy for you to get your parts right, and it's also quite easy for you to mess up everything and then end up having some kind of trapezium shapes when you get towards the middle in front. So you really have to follow these steps carefully, and just keep watching and observe how I do this. So in order to get the clear parts, you see me applying the hair jam right there on the parts. I'm using shine and jam for that, so I just carefully apply that as I pat it out to become crisp and clear. So I take the second one and I peg it or pin it down to the rest of my hair, and then I start from the middle. You can see that, start from the middle. So when I make that part to the right and to the left, I make sure it's curved, not straight, like not curved, really like slanted to give that middle triangle. So if you don't get that first part right, it's always hard to correct your mistakes along the line or somewhere in the middle. Some people like to start their triangles from the sides. So if I was going to make smaller parts, like medium sized or small sized triangle braids, the pattern would definitely be a bit different from this. I'll probably have 3 lines or 3 rows from the top of her ear down to the nape of her neck. So you just want to apply your jam on these. Ensure the lines are straight and clear. Comb that very well, and then start to add your braiding hair while you braid. It looks very easy, but it's quite tricky, especially if it's your first time doing this. So yeah, I'm going to take this really slow for the first and the second line. Then I'll probably jump to the the trickiest part of it, which is the top part in front. You really want to watch the whole of this video to understand how this works. Like I said earlier, if this is your first time coming here, thank you so much for dropping by. My name is Queen, and I post hair videos every Fridays and makeup videos on Mondays. So just put on your notification bell so you get notified whenever I make a fresh post, so you'll not be left out. You can check out my other videos on makeup and braids or hairstyling. I started my channel not too long ago, but we're pushing, we're making it, we're moving forward, and with your help it will help us go a really long way. So you can leave a comment down below to tell us what you think about what you see. If you like what you see, give it a thumbs up. And if you have any questions, also do well to leave it down in the comments below. So I'm working with my assistant there. We're doing this together, so we'll be fast and get this done with. So I let down the second line, as you can see. I'm just combing that out using my jam to ensure that everything is clear as usual. Then I continue to make sure that the next part has it from the midpoint of the triangle of the first triangle in the first line. So I just make sure the line coming from the right is followed straight upwards to the left of the second row, and the one coming from the left of the first row is followed straight upwards to the right of the second row. If you're watching this, I'm sure you understand what I mean. So I do the same thing I did for the first line here. If you know how to braid before or to do knotless braid, is not difficult, because adding the hair in, I believe I zoomed it at some point, yeah, to show you that clearly how I added in the hair. But I probably will do a clearer video on that real soon to show you how the different ways how I make my knotless braids. Sometimes I add on both sides, the right and the left, and at other times I just add only on the left or the right, depending on how I start the braids. So to keep the braids laying flat down, there are some techniques you need to know. Anyway, that's for another time, so enjoy the video. So for each new line you're trying to part, you make sure that your parts correspond with the previous line. What I'm trying to say is, I don't know how to explain this, but you see the triangles from before, from the previous line. There is always a midpoint where the lines from the right side and the left side meet. So you want to make sure that the next line on the top is kind of a continuous line from the previous one to the one at the top. So the midpoint is always the focal point, is always the focus. That's where you take the part from to the left and to the right to form that perfect triangle, not to mix everything up, so that by the time you take up the braids, you see that the lines are even, not really even in size, but they follow the same pattern and all of that. So you want to be really careful, else you have your triangles scattered all around and you won't have that beautiful midpoint look you see on the braids right there. So now we're done with the bottom part and we're at the top, the very center of the hair. You can see that the way I parted the top is different from the way I usually part is round all the way around. It's more like a square with the edges really sharp to form that center, that focal point I talked about earlier. But it's still not like a real square or triangular shape, because the right hand side was a bit tilted and bent inwards, but the camera didn't really capture that. So you just have to cut in such a way that the triangles follow each other, and by the time you raise the braids up, you can have 3 or more braids forming larger triangles from the smaller triangles, depending on how you raise the braids up. So if you watch this to the end, you see around the middle, you see how I got this middle to look really corresponding with the other parts of the braids. You want to always make sure after applying your jam you go through that part again to ensure it's crisp and clear. She has very neat and beautiful scalp, so it's kind of popping the style of the hair and making the hair look as new as it is. Sometimes it's not our fault though, but sometimes some of us have scalps that are not very shiny, so no matter what you do, the hair doesn't tend to look as new as it is. So what I did was I created a part from the middle of her forehead down all the way to the center where the unbraided hair was, and then for each of the parts I started making triangles by slanting them, cutting them slantily, and making sure there's a midpoint in the center of her head right there. So it's like when you hold an orange and then you divide it into 6 equal parts sort of, and then making sure that as you're dividing it, the parts that meet the other sides of the triangles at the back where there are braids, you also ensure that the line is still continuous to ensure that midpoint and that arranged triangular parts you're trying to get. So we're just going to braid that down all the way, and because of how the hair is large in size, even though they're laying down flat, I still like to finish up my hair by dipping them in hot water. So after this, I'll show you how I dipped them in hot water, applied my hair oil to prevent freezing and breakage and to moisturize her scalp. I also used the hair mousse to help the braids and the stray hairs lay down flat onto her scalp and to just pop the beauty of this hair. So yeah, I used the bucket of boiling water. I boiled the water, used an empty bucket, then I used that stuff right there to just like take some quantity of the water, pour in the hair carefully. And because she had a complaint, no, she wasn't the one who had a complaint. I think the previous person before her, how someone burnt her neck with hot water, so we're just being really careful. So that's the end of it all. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to my channel, and yeah, put on your notification for subsequent uploads. Catch ya.